How's it, everyone? Welcome to another entry in my Versus series right here on OpenCourt. So today we're taking a look at two Yonex rackets. I'm going to try them both, pit them against each other and see which one I like better. Those two rackets are the Yonex Vcore 97H and the 97D. So before we get into this review, make sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button if you like this content to keep the reviews coming. First of all, I want to give a quick shout out to On Point Sports right here in Hawaii, which is where I got these rackets to try. They have an awesome selection of tennis and pickleball and other sports gear. So if you guys are ever on Oahu in Hawaii, check out On Point Sports. Alright, so we got two versions of the Vcore Pro 97, the H and the D model here. So I tried the Vcore Pro 97 Standard Edition last year and it was one of my top 5 favorite rackets from last year. And these are the two more advanced versions of the standard Vcore 97. So the previous generation of the Vcore Pro had a 97HD. So it seems like they just kind of split it in half. We have a 97H and a 97D, but it's not quite as simple as that. So let's start with the 97H. This is actually the update to the 97-330 from the previous edition, which is the racket that is endorsed by Stan Wawrinka. That was the heaviest model in the Vcore Pro and arguably the most demanding in the Vcore Pro lineup. So only slight changes to this update. The beam has been thickened just a little bit compared to the previous generation, and the shaft has been a little bit more elongated over here to give a little bit more flex and bend when you hit the ball. It's going to bend a little bit more over here for a little bit more power and feel and stability. Now we got the Vcore Pro 97D. This is the new update to the previous 97HD. So the HD just became this one. The 97-330 became the H. This one also same thing, slightly thicker beam and the elongated shaft. There aren't much differences between the H and the D, but let's dive into those differences a little bit by looking into the specs. So here are the specs. As you guys can see, there aren't very many differences. The main key difference is that weight difference. The 97H is 330 grams like the previous 97-330, and consequently that one also has a higher swing weight. It's a little bit more beefy, which is why it's going to be a little bit more demanding. The 97D, which is the update to the HD, retains that 18x20 string pattern, whereas the 97-330, which is now the H, has the more open 16x19. So the 97H has the higher weight at 330 and the higher swing weight, but more open pattern, and the 97D has the tighter 18-20 string pattern. So it's kind of interesting to see which one of these rackets is going to be more demanding to use. Alright, so enough talking. Without further ado, let's take the Yonex Vcore 97H and the 97D on the court. Let's go through the categories and see which one comes out on top. So starting out with the first category in this Versus series, power. Now, usually a 16x19 string pattern will have more power than a tighter 18x20. Also, usually the heavier the racket, the bigger punch it packs, so it stands to reason that the Vcore Pro 97H, which is heavier and has the more open pattern, would be the clear-cut winner when it comes to power. However, it's not quite as simple as that. In general, the 97H does have more power, especially on the ground strokes, returns, and volleys, but there were some times when I couldn't quite handle the weight of the 97H, and because of that, I could not generate as much power as the racket is capable of. This is obviously not a problem with the racket, but rather an issue with my strength and skill level. However, if you're on the fence about which of these might suit you better, the weight difference is probably the biggest factor to consider. Whenever I caught the ball late with the 97H, the ball floated over the net, if it even reached the net, and allowed my opponent to put pressure on me. Also, during long rallies, I would get exhausted from swinging the 97H more so than the 97D, so I would get up to net whenever I could. The area where the 97H was the clear winner was when I shortened my backswing and redirected my opponent's power back at them. I could see just how heavy my ball was when I struck it cleanly, so overall the power level is higher with the H, but in most cases the 97D was easier to handle, and therefore I could generate pace more consistently and over a longer duration. Now getting into the next category of spin, Again, usually the more open string pattern will get more spin, but that's not to say the 97D with its 1820 couldn't get any spin, but the contest for spin was a little more clear-cut than power. Even though the H was heavier, as long as I met the ball in front, the more open pattern was able to generate more natural topspin. Also, the heavier H was better for slicing because the weight kept the racket from fluttering in my hand when I was cutting through contact for the slices. The one area where spin suffered for me was on the kick serve. The lighter 97D was clearly better for hitting diving kickers because the weight was easier for me to accelerate with and pronate on the follow-through. My kick serves would usually sit up there for my opponent to attack or run around with the heavier Vcore, and I just couldn't trust my serve to set me up to come up to the net. The slice serves were pretty much even. The more open pattern allowed for easier net clearance and power, but the tighter pattern got lower skidding slices on serves only. So for spin, the 97D was the winner on serves because it was lighter and easier to accelerate, but on the ground strokes and slices, the heavier H was the winner because it produced more natural topspin and never lost acceleration when slicing. So overall, I'll give spin to the more open 97H. Now the third category of comfort, this is a push. Both the 97H and D have the same dampening technology, the VDM, in the handle, and they both felt the same. Granted, the tighter pattern of the 97D felt a little stiffer, but if you string at a lower tension or use a non-poly string, comfort can match or even surpass that of the more open H, so it really doesn't matter what the stock comfort level is. That being said, both rackets are on the slightly more muted side, and if you have arm issues, this racket probably won't worsen your pain, but both of these rackets are for more advanced players anyway, so if you have good form, you probably don't have arm issues. Next category, control. This is also a close one. Generally, a tighter pattern will have a lower trajectory, so if you're a flatter hitter, the 97D might be more suited to your style. If you equate control with spin levels and swing more vertically and rely on the spin to bring your shots down inside the lines, the 97H might be more your cup of tea. For me personally, because I'm an aggressive returner and hit my returns more on a line, I always prefer 1820 patterns to more open ones. Control on serves was clearly better with the lighter racket for me. Because the 97H was so heavy, whenever I tried to flatten out my serve, I felt my body forcibly trying to rotate to generate racket head speed, and this caused me to spray my flat serve all over the court. I think my flat serve percentage with the 97H was in the single digit range, but both of these rackets were difficult to hit flat serves with. At the net, the control was clearly better with the 97D, and again, I must reference the weight here. The lighter 97D allowed me to get the racket into position to block back fast hit balls easier, and this allowed me to hit cleaner volleys. I would occasionally hit the frame with the heavy 97H because I was a tad late getting the racket into position. Also, the high volleys and overheads were noticeably more difficult with the heavier racket because it took more time to get the racket above my head, and this sometimes caused me to catch it late. So if I define control as how in command I felt on my shots on the court, the lighter 97D definitely made me feel more connected to the ball. Last category, feel. Like with comfort, since both rackets have the same dampening technology, the feel was basically a push. I might say the 97D had a little more feel. Generally, a tighter string pattern will have a little more feedback because more strings are touching the ball at the time of contact, but feel really comes down to dwell time, and that's more of an issue with the strings than the racket itself. As long as the racket isn't super dampened, like Wilson's Countervail series, the strings are a bigger factor when it comes to dwell time, so this category of feel would be a tie. I did feel confident going for corners, drop shots, and lower percentage shots with both versions of the Vcore Pro because they both had decent touch and feel. I think there isn't really enough of a difference in this department to crown a clear winner. So those are all the categories. I must say I really enjoyed playtesting both of these rackets. I think both the 97H and D are meant for more advanced players with sound mechanics and able to generate good power and spin through their fluid strokes already. The weight is definitely the defining characteristic, more so than the string pattern, when it comes to how these rackets play. If you are stronger and more fit than I am, the heavier 97H should be no problem, but for me personally, the 97D would be the one I would pick as the winner between these two because the weight and string pattern are right where my ideal spec range lies. I really like the 1820 pattern because it allows my shots to stay low over the net and keep my flatter returns inside the lines. I would be comfortable playing singles with the 97D, which is not something I could say for the 97H. I would just get tired from swinging that thing from the baseline in extended rallies, not to mention serving every 2 games rather than every 4. So if you're on the fence between these two rackets, I hope this Versus review was able to assist you in your decision. I heard there was an update to the Vcore Pro 97 coming sometime this year, though I'm not 100% sure. But if that's the case, I'm super excited because the Vcore Pro line is my favorite in the Yonex lineup, and I can't wait for future updates in this series. Thanks for watching this head-to-head comparison review of the Yonex Vcore Pro 97H and the 97D right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.